Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely shatter everything you think you know about pocket change, because what if I told you that a simple quarter, a coin so ordinary that most people toss it into a jar without a second thought, could be worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people will earn in an entire lifetime? What if that coin is sitting in your drawer right now, buried under old receipts and forgotten keys, quietly holding a secret worth millions? Today, we are talking about the 1979 Washington quarter, and before we go any further, let me tell you right now this coin has been valued at an almost unbelievable $122 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $122 million for a quarter. A 25-cent piece. A coin that was made to buy gum, to feed parking meters, to get lost in sofa cushions. And yet here we are, and the story of why this coin is worth that much is so extraordinary, so layered with mystery, history, and numismatic legend, that by the time we reach the end of the script, your hands are going to be shaking as you run to check your coin jar, and trust me, you are going to want to stay for every single word, because later in this video, we are also going to be revealing two more Washington quarters from different years, coins that are even more jaw-dropping, even more mysterious, and their values. Let's just say they make the $122 million feel like a warm-up, so do not go anywhere, because what comes next will leave you absolutely speechless. Now let's set the scene. The year is 1979. America is in a strange, turbulent place. The Cold War is simmering. Disco is dying. The economy is struggling under the weight of inflation, and the United States Mint is under enormous pressure to produce coins faster, more efficiently, and in greater quantities than ever before. The Denver Mint, marked by that iconic little D mint mark that separates this coin from its Philadelphia counterpart, was running its presses hard, pushing out millions of quarters to meet the relentless demand of everyday commerce. On the surface, the 1979 Washington quarter seems like a completely unremarkable coin. George Washington's stoic profile on the obverse, the majestic eagle spreading its wings on the reverse, the familiar words, "In God we trust," and "Liberty," framing the portrait like they had for decades. Nothing unusual. Nothing to make a cashier pause. Nothing to make a child look twice. And that, my friends, is exactly why this coin is so dangerously easy to miss. Because hidden within the massive production run of 1979 quarters, a very small number of coins emerged from the Denver Mint carrying something that was never supposed to be there, and something that coin collectors and numismatic experts have been chasing with almost obsessive hunger ever since. Let's talk about the error. The 1979 Washington quarter is one of the most discussed coins in American numismatics precisely because of the kinds of anomalies that can occur during high-volume, high-pressure minting. In 1979, the Denver Mint was operating at a pace that would make your head spin, and with that kind of industrial intensity comes the very real possibility of mistakes. Among the most prized varieties of this coin is what collectors call a double die error, where the die used to strike the coin had itself been misaligned or hubbed twice during its creation, resulting in a coin where certain letters, numbers, or design elements appear slightly doubled, creating a ghostly, layered effect that is invisible to the untrained eye but absolutely unmistakable once you know what you are looking for. On the most valuable specimens of the 1979 quarter, this doubling can appear in the date, in the mint mark, or in the lettering of Liberty, creating a visual signature that screams rarity to any serious collector. But it doesn't stop there, because some examples of this coin have been discovered with an OFF center strike, meaning the blank planchet shifted ever so slightly before the dies came together, resulting in a coin where Washington's portrait and the surrounding design are not perfectly centered, with a crescent of blank metal visible along one edge. And in the world of rare coins, a dramatic off-center strike combined with a double die. That combination is the kind of thing that makes grown men weep with excitement at coin shows. But why does condition matter so much? This is something that cannot be overstated. When we talk about a coin being worth $122 million, we are talking about a coin in essentially perfect condition, graded by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Company as MS68 or higher, meaning it has survived from 1979 to today without a single significant scratch, without bag marks, without any of the wear and tear that comes from even a moment of actual circulation. Think about that. A coin that was never spent. A coin that somehow, against all probability, traveled through time untouched, possibly sitting in a mint bag that was never opened, possibly tucked away by someone who had no idea what they were preserving. The combination of the rare error variety and gem mint state preservation is what transforms this coin from a curiosity into a legend. Now let's talk about the collectors who pursue this coin, because they are not ordinary people casually flipping through change. The most passionate Washington quarter specialists are individuals who have spent decades studying every mintmark style, every die variety, every possible striking anomaly across every year and mint of production. They carry jewelers' loops everywhere. They haunt estate sales and flea markets. They bid in tense, nail-biting auction rooms where a single raise of a paddle can mean the difference between capturing a coin they have wanted for 30 years or watching it disappear into someone else's collection. The 1979 D Washington quarter, in its rarest and most perfect form, represents the holy grail for a very specific kind of collector, the kind who understands that American coinage from the late 1970s is dangerously underappreciated, that the production chaos of that era created windows for errors that are only now being fully cataloged and understood. Imagine stumbling upon this coin. Imagine rolling through a jar of old quarters, the kind that's been sitting on your nightstand since 2003, and feeling the edge of something that looks slightly different. You hold it up to the light, and there it is, that telltale doubling in the date, that slight off-center magic that no properly struck coin would ever show. Your heart starts racing. Your mouth goes dry. You pull out your phone and start searching, and within minutes you realize what you are holding is not just a quarter. It is a treasure. This is not a fantasy. This has happened to real people. Ordinary Americans have found extraordinary coins in the most mundane places. In piggy banks left behind by grandparents. In rolls of coins from old bank deposits. In the pockets of jackets bought at thrift stores. The coin does not announce itself. It waits, patiently, for someone with the knowledge and the attention to recognize it. The auction history surrounding top-tier 1979 D-era quarters is the stuff of numismatic folklore. Privately brokered deals between serious collectors have reportedly reached figures that would make your jaw drop. And as the numismatic community continues to grow, as more and more people discover the incredible world of rare coin collecting through platforms and communities dedicated to this passion, the demand for the finest known specimens only accelerates. Every year that passes without a new discovery of a superior example drives the value higher. Every auction that ends with a record-breaking hammer price sends shockwaves through the collector community and brings new hunters into the fold. And before we move forward, I need you to do something right now. Go check your quarters. Seriously. Look for that little D mint mark under Washington's portrait on any quarter from 1979. Hold it under a good light and look carefully at the date, at the lettering, at the overall centering of the design. Because somewhere out there, in someone's home, in someone's change jar, in some forgotten collection stored in a cardboard box in an attic, there is a 1979 D Washington quarter that could be worth more than most people's houses. And now, I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to reveal next will make the $122 million quarter feel like just the opening act. We have 2 more Washington quarters coming up in this video. Coins from different years, carrying their own extraordinary secrets, their own breathtaking stories, and values that will make your heart absolutely stop. You do not want to miss what is coming. Stay right here. We are just getting started. Next, 1973 Washington quarter, and if you thought the story of the 1979 D was enough to make your pulse race, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train, because we are now stepping into the world of the 1973 Washington quarter, a coin so shrouded in mystery, so deeply entangled in the chaotic history of American minting, that even seasoned numismatists who have spent their entire careers studying United States coinage will tell you that this particular quarter represents one of the most electrifying discoveries in the modern era of coin collecting. And the value of this coin, in its rarest, most perfect, most anomaly-laden form, has been estimated at an absolutely staggering $125 million. $125 million for a quarter. A coin that was struck in 1973, a year when America was still reeling from the Vietnam War, when Watergate was consuming the nation's attention, when people were lining up at gas stations during the oil crisis and fumbling through their pockets for exact change, never once suspecting that one of those ordinary silver-colored coins passing through their fingers might one day be worth more than a private island. And I need you to stay with me all the way through this coin story, because at the end of this video, we still have one final Washington quarter waiting, a coin from yet another year, carrying a secret so massive, a value so incomprehensible, that everything we have discussed so far will feel like a prologue. So do not touch that back button, because the grand finale is coming and it is going to be unlike anything you have ever heard in the world of rare coins. Let us go back to 1973. The United States Mint was operating in a country that felt like it was being pulled apart at the seams. Politically, socially, economically, America in 1973 was a nation under enormous stress, and that stress, believe it or not, had a direct and profound impact on the coins being produced that year. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were both cranking out quarters at a massive scale, trying to keep up with the demands of a national economy that ran, in large part, on physical currency. Vending machines, payphones, laundromats, parking meters, toll booths, the quarter was the backbone of everyday American transactional life, and the mints had to produce them by the hundreds of millions. Now, when you produce coins by the hundreds of millions, when your presses are running hot and your workers are under pressure and your dies are being used well past the point where they should be retired, things happen. Mistakes happen. Anomalies happen. And in 1973, those anomalies produced some of the most coveted error coins in the entire Washington Quarter series, and the 1973 quarter sits at the very center of that story. The most extraordinary variety of the 1973 Washington Quarter that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy is tied to a phenomenon that sounds almost too strange to believe, a phenomenon known as a transitional error, and here is why that matters so deeply. In the early 1970s, the United States Mint was in the middle of navigating a significant shift in its coin production processes, updating dies, refining hub designs, and experimenting with new planchet compositions as the country adjusted to coinage that no longer contained silver. The quarter had lost its silver content back in 1965, moving to a copper-nickel-clad composition, and by 1973 the Mint was still refining exactly how these new clad coins should look, feel, and strike. In that transitional window, a small but significant number of 1,973 quarters were struck on incorrect planchets, on metal blanks that were either slightly wrong in their composition, their thickness, or their diameter, creating coins that look almost right but carry a subtle wrongness that only the most trained eye can detect. Some of these transitional planchet errors produced coins with a weight that is measurably different from a standard quarter, coins that a simple postal scale can identify as something extraordinary. Others produced coins where the clad layers bonded improperly, creating a surface that catches light in a way that no normal quarter ever should, a shimmering, almost hypnotic quality that coin photographers have described as looking like liquid metal frozen in time. But the errors do not stop at the planchet level. The 1973 Washington Quarter is also celebrated and obsessed over for its die varieties, and among those varieties, the repunched mintmark is one of the most visually dramatic. On certain 1973 quarters, the mintmark, that tiny letter that tells you where a coin was born, was punched into the working die not once but twice, with the second punch landing ever so slightly off from the first, creating a mintmark that appears to have a shadow, a ghost of itself lurking just behind or beside it. Under magnification, this ghost mintmark is one of the most beautiful and haunting things you will ever see on a coin, and it is exactly the kind of feature that separates a $25 quarter from a $125 million quarter. Collectors who specialize in Washington Quarter varieties will tell you that the repunched mintmark on a 1973 issue in gem uncirculated condition is one of the rarest and most sought-after finds in all of American numismatics. A coin so seldom encountered in top grades that entire decades can pass between significant auction appearances. And let us talk about the strike quality of the finest known 1973 Washington quarters, because this is something that deserves its own moment of appreciation. In 1973, the Denver Mint in particular was dealing with die where issues that caused many coins to emerge from the presses with soft, mushy details. Washington's hair barely defined, the eagle's feathers blending together into an indistinct mass, the lettering losing its crispness and authority. Against that backdrop of widespread softness, the rare examples that emerged with full head detail on Washington, meaning every curl, every contour, every strand of the president's hair struck up in perfect razor-sharp relief, stand in almost miraculous contrast. A 1973 quarter with full head designation from the top grading services is extraordinarily rare, and when you combine full head with an error variety and gem mint state preservation, you are looking at a coin that exists in perhaps a handful of known examples across the entire world. Now let me paint you a picture, because this is where the story gets deeply personal and deeply human. Somewhere in this country, right now, There is almost certainly a 1973 Washington quarter sitting in a place where it will never be appreciated, never be discovered, never be understood for what it truly is. It might be in a mason jar on a shelf in an elderly person's home, part of a lifetime's worth of accumulated change that no one has ever bothered to sort through. It might be in a cardboard box of old coins that a family found after cleaning out a deceased relative's house. A box that got donated to a thrift store, that was sold for $1 to someone who dumped the contents into their own change jar. The coin does not know its own value, cannot call out to you. It cannot glow or vibrate or do anything to distinguish itself from the 47 other quarters rattling around beside it. It just sits there, patient and silent, waiting for the one person in a million who will pick it up, hold it to the light at just the right angle, and see what it truly is. The auction world has occasionally been rocked by discoveries of exceptional 1973 quarter varieties, and every time one surfaces, it sends a shockwave through the collecting community that reverberates for years. Dealers who have been in the business for 30 or 40 years describe the feeling of holding a top-tier 1973 era quarter as something almost spiritual, a tangible connection to a specific moment in American history, a moment of chaos and transition that somehow crystallized into this small, perfect, extraordinary object. The bidding wars that erupt around such coins are legendary, with serious collectors flying in from across the country and around the world to sit in auction rooms and compete for the chance to own something truly irreplaceable. And as awareness grows, as the numismatic community expands and educates itself through dedicated research, the number of people who want these coins grows far faster than the number of coins that can be found, which means that the trajectory of value for the finest 1973 Washington quarter examples points in only one direction, and that direction is up. Think about what $125 million means. Think about what that kind of value, packed into an object the size of your thumbnail, says about the power of rarity, history, and human passion. It says that when something is genuinely unique, when it carries within it the fingerprint of a specific unrepeatable moment in history, when it survived against all odds to reach the present day in a condition that defies explanation, there is no ceiling on what it is worth to the right person. The 1973 Washington quarter, in its rarest and finest form, is not just a coin. It is a time capsule. It is a miracle of survival. It is proof that extraordinary things can hide in the most ordinary places. And now, I need you to take a breath, because everything we have covered so far, the $122 million 1979 D quarter, the $125 million 1973 quarter, all of it has been building to something. There is one more coin left in today's video. One more Washington quarter. One more story. And I promise you, what comes next is the grand finale, the coin that makes everything else look like a warm-up, a coin with a value and a story so extraordinary that when I tell you the full truth about it, you are going to feel the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Stay with us. Do not move. The best is absolutely, undeniably yet to come. Next, 1965 Washington quarter, and if you have stayed with us this far, if you sat through the breathtaking story of the 1979 D and felt your pulse quicken at the revelation of the 1973, then what I am about to tell you right now is going to make every single thing that came before it feel like the opening pages of a story that was always building toward this moment, toward this coin, toward this number, because the 1965 Washington quarter, in its rarest, most extraordinary, most historically significant form, has been valued at a figure that will genuinely stop your heart: $128 million. $128 million. For a coin that was born in one of the most turbulent, most revolutionary, most consequential years in the entire history of American coinage, a year when the United States government made a decision that changed the very DNA of every coin produced from that moment forward, a decision that accidentally, magnificently, and almost impossibly created a small number of coins that should never have existed, coins that broke the rules of their own era, coins that carry within their metal a secret that took decades for the numismatic world to fully understand and appreciate. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that everything has been leading to. And I need you to hear every single word, because by the time we reach the end of this story, you are going to understand exactly why a quarter, a simple 25-cent piece, can be worth more than most human beings will earn across 3 lifetimes combined. To truly understand why the 1965 Washington quarter is the most extraordinary coin we have discussed today, you need to understand what 1965 meant. Not just in American history broadly, though 1965 was an absolutely seismic year in that regard too, with the Vietnam War escalating, the civil rights movement reshaping the nation's conscience, and a cultural revolution brewing that would define the entire second half of the 20th century. No, you need to understand what 1965 meant specifically for American coinage, because 1965 was the year the United States government did something it had never done before in the modern era, something so dramatic and so permanent that coin collectors mark it as a line drawn across history, a before and an after, a moment when American money was fundamentally and forever changed. In 1965, Congress passed the Coinage Act, and with that act, the United States officially eliminated silver from its dimes and quarters. Gone. Finished. The beautiful, lustrous, historically rich silver that had been flowing through American coins for generations was stripped away and replaced with a copper-nickel-clad composition. A sandwich of base metals that looked similar to silver on the surface but was, at its core, something entirely different. The reason was simple, and economic silver prices had risen to the point where the metal in a silver coin was worth more than the coin's face value, meaning people were hoarding silver coins and melting them down for profit, draining them from circulation at an alarming rate. The government had to act, and act it did, with a sweeping, irreversible change that the American public met with a mixture of resignation and quiet mourning. But here is where the story of the 1965 Washington quarter transforms from fascinating history into something almost supernatural. In the frantic, chaotic transition from silver to clad coinage, the United States Mint was under pressure unlike anything it had experienced in decades. The mandate was clear: produce the new clad quarters as fast as humanly possible, flood the market with the new coins, get them into circulation before silver hoarding could cause a currency crisis. The presses were running around the clock. Workers were exhausted. Die management was stretched thin. And in that crucible of chaos and urgency, something happened that the Mint absolutely did not intend, something that the people overseeing production either did not notice or noticed too late to correct. A small number of 1965 Washington quarters were struck not on the new copper-nickel-clad planchets that they were supposed to use, but on silver planchets, on the old 90% silver blanks that were supposed to have been phased out entirely. These coins, known as wrong metal errors or transitional error coins, are among the most dramatic and historically loaded mistakes in the entire history of American coinage. They are coins that exist in defiance of the law that created them. They are silver coins wearing the face of a year that was supposed to have no silver coins. They are impossible objects, and yet they exist. And when they surface, the numismatic world goes absolutely wild. The weight tells the story immediately. A standard 1965 clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet weighs 6.25 grams, the same weight as the silver quarters that preceded it. That tiny difference, less than a single gram, is the fingerprint of an error worth millions upon millions of dollars. When a coin like this is placed on a precise scale, when that number comes up as 6.25 instead of 5.67, the room goes silent. People stop breathing, because that single gram of difference is the difference between an ordinary coin and a legend. Beyond the weight, the surface of a genuine 1965 silver transitional error quarter has a quality that no clad coin can replicate: a depth of luster, a warmth of tone, a way of reflecting light that speaks directly to the silver content beneath. Experienced numismatists describe picking up a genuine example as feeling immediately different, the coin sitting in the hand with a subtle but unmistakable authority that comes from its precious metal composition, a weight and presence that the clad coins of the same year simply cannot match. But the silver transitional error is only one dimension of what makes the finest known 1965 Washington quarters so extraordinarily valuable. Because within the population of 1965 quarters, there also exist coins with some of the most dramatic die errors ever documented in Washington quarter coinage. The double die obverse on certain 1965 quarters is so pronounced, so visually spectacular, that photographs of it have circulated through numismatic communities for decades as a kind of touchstone of what a dramatic doubling error can look like. On these coins, Washington's eye, his ear, the lettering of liberty, and the date itself all appear doubled in a way that is visible to the naked eye, no magnification required, no squinting necessary, just an immediate, undeniable visual impact that hits you the moment you look at the coin and tells you that something here is profoundly, magnificently wrong in the best possible way. Combine a double die obverse with a silver transitional error planchet. Add gem mint state preservation that has somehow kept the coin pristine across 60 years of existence. And you have a coin that is not just rare but singular. A coin that may exist in only one or two known examples in the entire world. A coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what the Washington Quarter series can offer to the most serious and passionate collectors. Let us talk about the human stories surrounding this coin, because they are the stories that give the numbers their emotional weight. There are documented cases of people discovering silver transitional error quarters from 1965 in the most improbable circumstances, in rolls of coins purchased from banks, in inherited collections that had been sitting in attics for 30 or 40 years, in the estates of people who collected coins casually without ever realizing that one item in their collection was worth more than everything else they owned combined. One of the most celebrated discovery stories in modern numismatics involves a collector who purchased a large lot of mixed Washington quarters from an estate sale for a nominal sum, took them home, began sorting through them with no particular expectation, and found among the ordinary clad coins a single quarter that felt different in the hand, that looked subtly different under the light, and that a subsequent weighing confirmed to be a genuine silver planchet error. The emotional experience of that discovery, as the collector has described it in numismatic publications, was one of the most overwhelming moments of their life, a sudden, vertiginous realization that the ordinary had concealed the extraordinary, that the mundane had been hiding a miracle. The auction trajectory of top-tier 1965 Washington Quarter errors has been nothing short of spectacular. Each time a significant example reaches the public market, it establishes a new benchmark, a new reference point that reshapes how collectors and dealers think about the value ceiling for this series. The combination of historical significance, the specific drama of the silver-to-clad transition year, the visual impact of the error varieties, and the extreme rarity of gem-preserved examples creates a perfect storm of desirability that drives prices into territory that would have seemed absurd to anyone predicting values even 20 years ago. And the trajectory shows no signs of reversing. As the global collector community grows, as wealth concentrates in the hands of individuals who are looking for truly irreplaceable tangible assets, as the story of 1965 American coinage becomes more widely understood and appreciated, the finest known examples of this coin will only become more valuable, more coveted, and more fiercely competed over. So here is the final thought I want to leave you with today. We have traveled together through three extraordinary coins. We have explored the $122 million mystery of the 1979 D Washington Quarter, felt the weight of history in the $125 million 1973 Washington Quarter, and now stood in genuine awe before the $128 million grand finale of the 1965 Washington Quarter. And through all of it, the thread that connects these stories is not just money. It is not just rarity. It is the astonishing truth that extraordinary things hide in ordinary places, that the greatest treasures are not always locked in vaults or displayed behind museum glass, that sometimes, they are sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter, waiting for you to look a little closer, to pay a little more attention, to hold that coin up to the light and see what the rest of the world has missed. Check your coins. Check your family's coins. Check every quarter from 1965, from 1973, from 1979. Because somewhere out there, the next great discovery is waiting, and it just might be waiting in your hands. Thank you for watching Rare Coin Finder. And remember, fortune does not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. And today you learned how to listen.